Hi, this is Usha. Welcome to Rathod's IAS classes. Today in this lecture, we are going to discuss current affairs of 19th January 2021. In this lecture, we are going to discuss 8 topics which are very much relevant to UPSC. So let's get started with our discussion and let us see the first article. Title says Covaxin not to be used in cases of allergy, fever, for immunity. So this article mainly focusing on Indian vaccine candidate, that is Covaxin. So this article will be important regarding health, which comes under GS paper 2. So let us have a discussion on this topic. First, let us see the context. Here Bharat Biotech, which is the manufacturer of Covaxin, Bharat Biotech came up with a statement. It said that people who are having with a history of allergies, fever, bleeding disorder, people on blood thinners, compromised immunity, or people on other medication, they should not take this COVID-19 vaccine, that is Covaxin here. So this vaccine also contraindicated for pregnant and also lactating women. That means it should not be given to the pregnant women and also lactating women. If you see some facts regarding the Covaxin, it is India's only indigenous COVID-19 vaccine and it is produced by Bharat Biotech in collaboration with ICMR. If you see constituents and action of this vaccine, it is mainly belonging to inactivated vaccine. That means after entering into this body, whenever this vaccine which is entered into the body, so it has some inactivated particles of microorganisms. In this case of COVID-19, we have the inactivated COVID-19 virus such that after entering of this virus particles into the body, it does not replicate or it does not cause the disease. But in return, it will be detected by our immune system and our immune system starts producing antibodies against this antigen. So in this way, we can develop immunity against COVID-19. Okay. And next one is it will develop an immune response to nucleoplasmid protein. So if you are seeing about this structure of COVID-19, so the structure will be like this. So on this envelope we have spike proteins and we have the protein envelope cover that is present. So it is called as nucleoplasmid protein. So against the spike protein and also against this envelope of COVID-19, our antibodies will be generating in our body. So this is the immune response. If you are talking about the efficacy data of ongoing phase 3 trial of Covaxin, so it is conducting in volunteers of about 22,500 people. So the efficacy data of this Covaxin has not been yet released. So this is one cause of concern regarding this Covaxin. And now let us see next article. Title says new monsoon forecast models on the anvil. This article mainly talking about one important topic of geography, that is monsoon. So this monsoon, it is one of the favorite topic of UPSC also. So now let us see context and as well as some important details which are highlighted in this article and also facts regarding this IMD. So I want to give you homework. Please open your NCERT and refer this monsoon chapter. So this monsoon chapter which is available in your Indian Geography NCERT. Okay. So context says India Meteorological Department, that is IMD, may introduce new monsoon models this year, mainly for better forecast changes in the rainfall during monsoon season. So why this decision taken by IMD? Because recently IMD failed to forecast the magnitude of excess monsoon rainfall in the year 2019 and as well as in 2020. In 2019 and 2020, IMD mainly failed to forecast magnitude of the rainfall in this monsoon season. So because of this decision taken by IMD. So if you are talking about the rainfall in 2019 and 2020, IMD indicated monsoon would be above normal, that's only. But if you see this year rainfall, it is very excess rainfall. So monsoon that concluded in the year 2020, it was unique. that with monsoon of 2019. So when we comparing monsoon of 2019 with monsoon of 2020, in this year, that is in 2020, we expected or we received highest rainfall. Okay, so this is the highest rainfall that we received third time in this century. Okay, and if you are talking about some more details regarding the forecast mechanism, so different models, 3 different models, they are to be tested in this year by IMD. 2 models are related to the dynamic model and 1 is a traditional statistic model. So in this dynamic model, they use a supercomputer such that they can record the changes of daily output of rainfall in the monsoon season. And next one is statistical model. So in this statistical model, it will equate the relationship of the physical parameters like, for example, sea surface temperature, snowfall, etc. They can be detected here. Now let us see some facts regarding this IMD. It is India Meteorological Department, established in the year 1875, headquarters located in Delhi. It also have some regional offices in Chennai, Mumbai, Kolkata, Nagpur, Guwahati, New Delhi. So this IMD comes under agency of Ministry of Earth Sciences of Government of India. So this IMD, it is one of the principal agency which is responsible for meteorological observations, weather forecasting, seismology, etc. So these are some important things that you should remember regarding this article. And don't forget about your homework. So here I want to make a small announcement. We came up with current affairs package course. So in this course, we are focusing exclusively on current affairs. We are providing current affairs based prelims practice questions and current affairs based mains answer writing practice. We are giving daily question and also weekly essay practice. So in this way, this course is very helpful to clear both the prelims and also mains. So this course, it is for 1 year. So in this 1 year, you will going to master current affairs. Okay. So mastering of this current affairs, it is important for UPSC because 50 to 60% of the questions, either it may be prelims, either it may be mains, and even current affairs plays an important role in your personality test also. So mastering current affairs is important to clear UPSC. So this course is very helpful to clear UPSC, and please don't take it as a choice. Please join this course. And this course is very beneficial and also highly economical. If you want to join this course, if you want to know the details of this course, the details are given in the description box. So please visit it once. And now let us see the next article. Task Force on Marriage Age submits report to PMO. So we already discussed about age of a girl at a marriage in our earlier sessions as well. So this article mainly says that already we studied in the Prime Minister's Independence Day speech that there was one task force that came into picture to review on the age of a girl at marriage. So now task force came up with the report and that report submitted to the Prime Minister office. So this is the thing that you should remember here. And regarding this report, there is nothing which is revealed in this article. So we are going to discuss about that task force report in our future lectures. Okay, first let us see what is given in this article in this lecture. So background here is task force set up to take a re-look at age of marriage for women. Now this task force submitted its report to the Prime Minister office and Ministry of Women and Child Development. If you are talking about background of this article, our Prime Minister in his Independence Day speech, he spoke about panel which was formed mainly to decide right age for marriage for women. Even our Finance Minister in her budget speech last year, she also proposed a panel on age of a girl entering into motherhood. So whenever we are going for a correct age of girl entering motherhood, we can decrease the problem we are facing, that is maternal mortality rate. And also it can improve the nutritional levels in the women. As we know, more than 60% of the women across the country, they are facing anemia. Okay, so this anemia, it is one of the cause for early age of motherhood. And next one is, these statements also have a reference that there is a correlation of age of marriage and the motherhood as well. So this is the thing that you should remember. and in our future lectures we are going to discuss about this task force report also. And now let us see the next article. Title says government may raise import duties by 5 to 10%. So this import duties is very important, and especially the students who are beginners, they need to focus on this import duties and they need to understand what is the significance of this import duties in our Indian economy. So this article will be important regarding economy, which comes under GS paper 3. So first let us see the context. Here India is considering raising of import duties by 5 to 10% on more than 50 items. They include smartphones, electronic components, electronic appliances, etc. So some of the electronic appliances include even refrigerators, air conditioners, etc. So the aim to increase this import duties here is to promote self-reliant India, to promote and to support domestic manufacturing in the country. So this is the aim. Because of this, we are coming up with increase in the import duties of 5 to 10% on more than 50 items. So what will be the significance? The first and the foremost here is it will get some additional revenue about rupees 200 billions to rupees 210 billions to the government. And we also have the negative impact because recently some international companies like IKEA and Tesla, they are planning to launch cars in India, and they are coming up with the few furniture companies in India. It will affect our furniture and also electric vehicles entry into the India. So we can have both the positive and also negative impact. So other positive impact here is we are promoting domestic industries. That means we can increase livelihood opportunities for the local people and also employment generation either directly or indirectly. So these are some positives and also these are some negatives. And now let us try to understand what is this import duty. So as we know, every country it is not self-reliant. So it will go for importing and it will go for exporting. So whenever we are importing the goods from the other countries, so on these goods we are imposing this import duty. So the tax which is collected on the imports by the customs authorities of the country, then that tax is called as import duty. Import duty also called as tariff or import tax or customs duty, import tariff, etc. So this import duty levied by custom authorities mainly based on value of goods that are imported. And what is the purpose? The first one is that will raise the income of local government, and it will also provide the market for the domestic products. And sometimes countries also impose this import duty mainly to penalize a particular nation by charging higher import duties. So these are some facts that you should remember regarding this article. Now let us see the next article. Title says how comorbidities make COVID severe. So this article mainly talking about COVID and comorbidities, how this COVID-19 which is showing impact on this comorbidities. So what is the impact of COVID-19 on the patient who are suffering with the comorbidities? If you are talking about the priority group, even government also given priority to the people who are below the age 50 with the comorbidities and also people with more than 50 years of age. So as we know, age is increasing, the health impacts on the people, on the elderly also increasing. So those people, they may face some other diseases as well, like diabetes, hypertension, that is increased blood pressure, and also liver disease, lung disease, etc. So because of this, the metabolic function of the people will be started decreasing as they are increasing the age. With increase in the age, the metabolic activities in the body that are going to decrease. That leads to the other diseases like diabetes mellitus, heart disease, so and so. So in this condition, so regarding this vaccine drive, so 4 group of priority that came up with the government, they include healthcare workers, frontline workers, people with less than 50 years of age with comorbidities, and also people with more than 50 years of age. So because of this, COVID-19 also increase in the impact or increase in the adverse effect in the comorbidities condition. Government came up with this priority list, included this comorbidities also. Now let us try to understand how COVID-19 which is impacting this comorbidities, and this article which is mainly science related thing, so I will try my level best to make you understand this. So here recently there are different types of diseases. So medical students mainly study about these diseases, right? So these diseases are classified into two types. First one is acquired diseases, second one is congenital. Congenital means by birth we have that disease, then that is called as congenital. So what is acquired thing? Acquired thing means it will be coming from outside after birth. Okay, it may be either infectious, inflammatory, nutritional diseases, metabolic disorders, vascular disease, or neoplastic, that means cancer. So if you are talking about COVID-19, it is an infectious inflammatory disease caused by SARS coronavirus 2. If you are talking about metabolic disorders, we can say, for example, diabetes mellitus, hypertension, metabolic syndrome, obesities. So these are some important diseases which comes under the other category of acquired diseases. So if you are talking about this diabetes mellitus, hypertension or other diseases, so there is a damage that happened to the lining of these endothelial cells or blood vessels. As we know, blood vessels are important and they are connected to the different organs. So these blood vessels are very important, that it will ensure the supply of the blood. So this blood will carry oxygen, nutrients that are required to organs. So this endothelium, which is the lining of the blood vessel, so it will be affected in this metabolic disorders. What is the meaning of comorbidity? Comorbidity means person who is facing more than one illness at a time. That means patient suffering from diabetes mellitus. Also he is suffering from hypertension. So more than one disease he is suffering, then that condition is called as a comorbidity. For example, common comorbidities includes diabetes mellitus, hypertension, heart disease, psychiatric disease, substance abuse, lung disease, liver disease, etc. If you are talking about coronavirus, there are normally three types of coronavirus. First one is SARS coronavirus 1, second one is SARS coronavirus 2, and MERS, Middle East Respiratory Syndrome coronavirus. So this MERS mainly came from the camels and it transmitted to the humans. But if you are talking about SARS coronavirus, it transmitted mainly from the bats to humans. Now let us talk about this SARS coronavirus. If you see the structure, it will be like this. Okay, on the surface it have the spike proteins. So this spike proteins acts as an important component here, because if you see, if there is any human cell, on the human cell we have receptors. So this coronavirus or SARS coronavirus will specially attaches to the ACE2 receptor, which are mostly found, which are highly found on blood vessels and also epithelial cells. Okay, endothelial cells, epithelial cells. So on this ACE receptor which is highly present. So this spike proteins will go and will attach to this ACE2 receptor and it will enters into the cell. So this is the mechanism how this SARS coronavirus entering into the cell. So after entering into the cell, it starts multiplying. Now let us talk about the role of ACE receptors. So if you are talking about this ACE receptors, there are commonly two types, ACE1 receptor and ACE2 receptor. So this ACE1 and ACE2 receptor, they play an important role in maintaining the blood pressure. So they mainly act on angiotensin and also peptides. So this is the important thing that you should remember here. And this ACE1 and ACE2 receptors, they are widely present on the lining of endothelial cells. For example, blood vessels like arteries, veins, capillaries, that means small blood capillaries, and also even on the smooth muscles, blood vessels, lining of epithelial cells in the respiratory tract, kidneys, even gut. So in all these places we can see this ACE receptor which is widely distributed. So if you are talking about the role of blood vessels, they are very important because they carry blood. So in this blood they carry especially oxygen, nutrition to all the organs. So whatever the organs they require oxygen and these nutrients, that will be supplied mainly to the blood, right? So this coronavirus, after entering into the cell, it will start to multiply. So after multiplying, it starts invading and infecting any tissue or any organ. For example, if you are talking about the influenza, so this influenza will only infect the respiratory tract, but it is not like influenza virus. So this SARS-CoV-2 virus will affect each and every tissue, each and every organ from head to toes. So it caused damage through the blood supply mainly. So now let us talk about role of ACE1 and role of ACE2. So if you are seeing physiologically, that means functionally, so this ACE1 mainly converts angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2. So the important function of this angiotensin 2 here is, it is a protect constrictor of the blood vessels. That means if at all there is this is the wideness, this is the thickness, or we can say this is the wideness of this blood vessel. So whenever angiotensin 1 which is converted into angiotensin 2, and this angiotensin 2 mainly acts on the blood vessels, so it will leads to the narrowing of the blood vessels. That means we can see constriction of the blood vessels that is seen. So this is the one of the important action of this ACE1 receptor. And if you are talking about this ACE2 receptor, it converts angiotensin to angiotensin 1 and also angiotensin 2 into the peptides. So the important role of the peptides here is to dilate the blood vessels. If already we have the narrow the blood vessels, so whenever this angiotensin 1 and angiotensin 2 which are converted into peptides, then the blood vessel will dilate. Okay, whenever blood vessel is narrowing, we can see there is increase in the blood pressure. Whenever this dilation of blood vessels is seen, then we can see there is a decreasing of blood pressure. Okay, because of this COVID-19 infection, it is mainly attacking this ACE2 receptors. So this ACE2 receptors mainly related to the dilating of blood vessels. So because of attack on these ACE2 receptors, it will interferes mainly with vasodilatory peptides. So the balance will be moved towards the vasoconstriction. That means the wideness of the blood vessels will be decreased such that there is increase in the blood pressure. Okay. So because of this narrowing of the blood vessels, the blood supply will be decreased. So if at all there is a dilation of the blood vessel, then lot of amount of the blood can be moved. But because of the narrowing of blood vessels, only less amount of the blood will be flowed. So this less amount of the blood, that will carry less amount of oxygen and less amount of nutrient supply to the organs here. So this is the important thing, how this coronavirus affecting the comorbidities. And now let us try to understand with one example. So let us take this diabetes mellitus. So what is diabetes? Diabetes means there is already increased blood sugar levels. So in our blood, sugar levels will be increased. So this condition is called diabetes mellitus. So we see normally high blood sugar levels. So because of high blood sugar levels, blood will become viscous. So already becoming blood viscous, to move this viscous blood in the blood vessels, it will cause some rupture in the blood vessels. So it will lead to the damage of endothelial cells. So because of this endothelial cells damage, that will hasten the blood clotting factors, and that leads to blood clotting. So whenever any blood which is clotted in this blood vessel, what happened? The supply of oxygen and supply of nutrients will be decreased. And finally, it will reduce the oxygen supply to the organs. So in this way, it will further increase the damage of organs. And next one is beta cells. Beta cells are located in the pancreas, and these beta cells are important for controlling of blood sugar levels, because this beta cells will secrete insulin. So this insulin converts excess glucose in the blood or excess sugar in the blood to the glucagon. Okay, so this sugar is secreted, this insulin is secreted by beta cells. So whenever these ACE2 receptors which are present in the beta cells also, they are blocked. So because of this, there is less amount of insulin which is released. So because of the less amount of the insulin released, we can see there is increase in the blood sugar levels. So this is the second important thing. So in this context, what is the solution? What is the way forward? Here we need to take vaccines, or we can go for the convalescent plasma therapy. But this convalescent plasma therapy, it is not good, or we see there is poor response here. So in this context, we need to take vaccines, especially for the elderly people who are having with this comorbidities. So this is the gist of this article. I hope it is clear now. Now let us see next article. Title says don't doubt Indian vaccines. So this article again talking about Indian vaccines. This article will be important regarding health, which comes under GS paper 2. So let us have a detailed discussion on this topic. If you see context or background, Covishield and Covaxin, so these are two Indian vaccine candidates that got approval from DCGI, Drug Controller General of India. And now regarding this Indian vaccine candidates, several questions they are came into picture regarding emergency approval. Why emergency approval which is given by DCGI without any proper efficacy data? So in this regard, people mainly demanding efficacy data and information regarding these vaccines. So the questions not only regarding this Indian vaccine candidates, if you are talking about the foreign vaccines like we can say Moderna, Pfizer, so questions also been raised about these vaccines also, though they reported 90% of efficacy. So now what is efficacy? To understand this, I will give you small example. If you are taking a group of people, for example, 10,000 people are there in one group, and we are taking another 10,000 people in another group. So for group 1, we are giving vaccine, and for group 2, we are not giving vaccine. And we are checking for how many people of this group are infected with this COVID-19 and how many people from this group are affected with this COVID-19. And based on this, we can say the efficacy of the group 1 who are given with this vaccine. Okay, so this is efficacy. So this efficacy mainly reflects the rate of hospitalization, ICU and deaths, etc. And one important question that comes into picture regarding this vaccine is, no one can predict whether COVID-19 vaccine protect against this circulating mutants. So in UK, we came up with new mutant of coronavirus, but we already prepared vaccines of COVID-19. So several countries are conducting their trials, but we do not know whether these vaccines they are also protective against this new mutant virus or not. Because in this new mutant virus, there are changes that happen in the spike proteins. So because of this, whether this vaccine like Covaxin, Covishield, Moderna, Pfizer, they will act against this new mutant form of this coronavirus or not. So it is one of the big challenge. And next one is, if you are talking about DCGI, so we should not have a doubt regarding integrity of this expert committee which is advising this DCGI, that is Drug Controller General of India. This DCGI, which is not an individual, but it follows due process for making informed decision, mainly for emergency use or restricted use. So in this context, we should not doubt our Indian vaccine, mainly to prevent the second wave of COVID-19 vaccine, COVID-19 disease, we need to go for vaccination. So there should be no doubt regarding the Indian vaccines. So this is the gist of this article. I hope it is clear. Now let us see the next article. Title says mining in India equals selling the family gold. So this article mainly talking about intergenerational equity. So in GS1, this topic is very, very important. Now let us try to understand this intergenerational equity regarding the mining. We are connecting this intergenerational equity with mining. Now let us see here what is the meaning of intra and inter. Intra means within our generation, that is, for example, if there is a family 1, family 2, family 3. So in this family 1, generation 1, generation 1, generation 2. We are comparing with the generation 1, generation 1, generation 1 of family 1, family 2 and family 3. So this comparison is called as an intra-generation. And what is the inter? Inter means we are comparing generation 1 with generation 2, generation 2 with generation 3. So this type of comparison is called as inter. So now we are talking about inter. That means our generation and our children's generation, our grandchildren generation. Okay. So if you see background of this intergenerational equity, So we are already facing problem called as climate change, increase in the temperature, so and so, right? And also high levels of consumption, that is over exploitation. So this climate change and this high levels of consumption or over exploitation, which is mainly threatening to rob future generations of a planet. Because of this over exploitation and the climate change, resources for the next generation will not be available. Though they are available, they are very scarce in nature. So in this context, we need to maintain intergenerational equity that will ensure the future generation also inherit as we inherit from our elders. So whatever the thing we inherited from our parents, that thing should be given by us to our next generation. So this is our responsibility here. So for this we need to maintain intergenerational equity here. So when we are successful in implementing this intergenerational equity, then we can ensure that our children will get at least some of them what we got. Okay. And next one is consuming what we have inherited without thinking about the next generation. Because of this, whenever we are using whatever we got, but we are not thinking about our next generation, then the next generation will live in a very, very poor world. Okay. And if you see the data regarding the India's National Mineral Policy of 2019, so according to this India's National Mineral Policy 2019, it mainly says that natural resources which are including minerals that are shared inheritance, they were the state as a trustee on behalf of people to ensure that future generation they will receive benefit of inheritance. So according to this India's National Mineral Policy, it mainly says that whatever the natural resources, for example minerals also, they should be used by thinking about the future generations. So the state mainly acts as a trustee that whatever that is saved in this generation, that will be passed to the future generations. So for example, when we are talking about extraction of gas, extraction of oil, extraction of minerals, etc., then we are selling this inheritance with the royalties and other proceeds being considerations they are paid in exchange of the mineral wealth extracted. That means whatever the thing, whatever the gas, whatever the oil, whatever the minerals that we are extracting, we are selling that without any having a thinking regarding what we are going to give to our next generations or the future generations here. So now we are extracting whatever it is possible to extract by us, and we are selling that for a very, very low price. So this is the thing. Whenever we are going for extracting or over exploiting the resources, we are not focusing on the sustainability. We are not saving anything for our future generation. So this is against intergeneration equity here. But if you are talking here, unfortunately, government also treating this mineral state proceeds as revenue or income for the government. So government also supporting the mining. Government also giving the clearances for mineral extractions, mining projects, such that it will get some revenue or income to the government. But it is a huge error which is made by government here, because government selling minerals at a price significantly which is lower than what they worth. So now when we are selling those minerals, we are thinking about the price at this stage, at this generation. But if the same resource which is saved for the future, and in the future we are selling that, the price will be 100 times more or some 1000 times more. So now we are extracting whatever it is possible and we are selling at a lower price here. Okay. And next one is, according to the reports of IMF, that is International Monetary Fund, it mainly says that many government research rich nations, for example UK, Norway, they are facing declining public sector net worth because they are extracting everything and they are selling. So because of this, government becoming poor day by day. It mainly indicates unsustainable mining. Okay. So in this context, if you are talking about example of Goa, people and the future generation of Goa already sold mineral worth of ₹100 for the ₹5. So because of this, they are going to face loss of ₹95 here. Okay. And what is the way forward? What can be done? The first one is we need to go for sustainable mining things. Okay. We need to decrease the selling of the mines or the minerals. Government should decrease the clearance, should be not giving clearances to these mineral projects. And the next one is we need to maintain the value of our children's inheritance. We need to follow the principle of intergenerational equity, and we need to save these minerals for our future generations also. State should act as a trustee for the economic rent. And next one is example, we can follow the case studies of international countries or other countries. The first one is Norway. Norway came up with this future generations fund that can be adopted in India. And next one is Supreme Court ruling in 2014 said that it mainly ordered Goa for creation of Goa Iron Ore Permanent Fund. And next one is we need to ensure mining should be constitutional. We need to promote justice, liberty, equality, fraternity, etc. And mining should be more ethical, fair, right and sustainable. We need to decrease losses, and we need to limit corruption. We need to limit crony capitalism, growing inequality, etc. So these are the some way forward that can be done. And now let us see the next article. Being tethered to bars during a pandemic. So this article mainly talking about prisons and pandemic. So this article, it is important regarding GS paper 2, and it is an important topic for mains. Now let us try to understand what is present in this article. So if you see pandemic, mainly to decrease transmission of this COVID-19, we need to follow some rules and regulations. For example, we need to maintain physical distancing. We need to avoid moving in the crowded places. We need to go for washing of hands. We need to sanitize ourselves, right? So if you are talking about prisons, there are many challenges which are faced by the prisons. For example, they are facing problem of sanitation. They are facing problem of overpopulation or overcrowding in the cells, maintaining of physical distancing, poor ventilated prisons. So if you are talking about data, there are about 1400 prisons which are present in the country, and they are housing for 4.5 lakh prisoners. So because of this, prisoners mainly acting as a breeding grounds for the virus. So if you are talking about the Prison Act of 1894, it mainly says that prisons, the exclusive responsibility of the state government. So state governments, they need to take some steps to decrease transmission of this coronavirus. If you are talking about the data, according to National Crimes Records Bureau report, it mainly says that 3.3 lakh prisoners, they are under trials or under trial prisoners. So because of this under trial prisoners, there is increase in the crowding in cells. And according to the section 167 of Criminal Procedure Code, it mainly says that procedure when investigation cannot be completed within 24 hours, that people that convicted can be kept in the jail. So it increased to 15 days, and now it is increased to 90 days here. So because of this, large number of people, they are present in the jail. They are mainly under trial people. So these under trial people, they are living in poor living conditions. They are overcrowding, inadequate healthcare facilities, and torture by other rowdy cheaters or other rowdy prisoners also seen. So in this context, what is the way forward? The first one is we can go for repeated testing procedures. If at all any prisoner who tested with positive, he can be isolated and treated. Okay. And next one is bails can be provided such that we can decongest the prisons. And next one is according to the CRPC section 346A, it mainly says that under trial should be released on personal bond if more than half period of the term or punishment spent in the jail for that offence. So these are the some way forwards which are suggested in this article. So this is the gist of this article. I hope it is clear. Now let us see the main question. What is intergenerational equity? Without intergenerational equity, wealth generated through mining is not sustainable. Discuss. So we discussed detailedly about this question, right, in editorial. So please try to read that editorial and write the answer. Answer should not be more than 250 words. Okay. By this we are concluding today. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. Please subscribe to my channel and don't forget to like, share and comment my videos. Thank you so much.